The cold was not just cold, it was a quiet enemy. It did not shout, it did not warn, it simply took lives slowly. In the winters of World War II, soldiers and civilians faced freezing nights with very little fuel. Wood was rare, time was short, and survival meant thinking smart. Many people today think you need a big fire to stay warm, more wood, more heat, more comfort. But back then they learned something different. They learned how to stay warm using less, much less, sometimes up to 90% less wood. This was not magic, it was skill, simple ideas, smart choices, and a deep understanding of heat. And today we are going to step into their world and uncover the exact tricks they used to survive brutal winters with almost nothing. At first it sounds strange, less wood means less heat, right? But that is not always true. In fact, big open fires waste most of their heat. The flames look strong, they feel warm for a moment, but most of that heat escapes into the air. Soldiers noticed this quickly. They would burn wood fast, yet still feel cold after the fire died down. It was not the amount of wood that mattered, it was how the heat was used. So instead of building bigger fires, they started building smarter ones. They asked a simple question: how do we keep the heat close instead of letting it escape? And that question changed everything. One of the biggest secrets was not about fire, it was about space. The smaller the space, the easier it is to keep warm. Soldiers would avoid heating large open areas. Instead, they used tight shelters, small bunkers, or even dug into the ground. The earth itself acted like a shield, blocking the wind and holding warmth inside. Sometimes they would sleep close together, sharing body heat, turning a group into a living heater. This meant they did not need a big fire. A small, steady heat source was enough. Less space, less heat needed, less wood burned. Another trick was trapping heat, not chasing it. They used simple materials like blankets, coats, and even dirt to block cold air and keep warmth inside. Openings were covered, cracks were sealed, and every bit of heat was protected. Think of it like holding water in a cup. If there are holes, it leaks out. Heat works the same way. By sealing their shelters, they turned weak fires into powerful heaters. Even a small flame could warm the entire space if the heat had nowhere to escape. Instead of fast-burning fires, they used slow-burning ones. A low flame may not look impressive, but it lasts longer and uses less fuel. They would stack wood in a way that controlled the burn. Not too much air, not too much flame, just enough to keep it alive. This created a steady heat, not a burst of heat that disappears quickly. It is like the difference between running and walking. Running uses more energy fast, walking lasts longer. Their fires walked, they did not run, and that made all the difference. Some units used a clever method. They heated the ground itself. They would build a small fire, let the heat soak into the earth, then cover it. Later they would sleep over that warm ground. The heat would rise slowly, keeping them warm through the night without needing a constant fire. This method used very little wood, yet gave hours of warmth. It was quiet, safe, and hard to detect, which also mattered during war. Heat stored in the ground, released when needed. Warmth was not just about fire, it was also about what you wear. Soldiers layered their clothing, trapping air between each layer. Air is a great insulator. It holds heat close to the body, instead of one thick coat. They used multiple layers, adjusting as needed. If they got too warm, they removed a layer. If they got cold, they added one back. This reduced the need for fire because their bodies stayed warm longer. Less fire needed, less wood used. Wind is a silent thief. It pulls heat away fast. Even a strong fire can feel useless if the wind cuts through you, so they built wind barriers, using whatever they had: wood, snow, dirt, even gear. By blocking the wind, they made every bit of heat count. A small fire behind a barrier could feel warmer than a large fire in the open. It was not about fighting the cold, it was about controlling the environment. Scene 9, sharing heat and smart timing. They also used time wisely. Fires were not always kept burning. Instead, they were used when needed most, like before sleep or during the coldest hours. People gathered close, shared heat, and made the most of each moment of warmth. Cooking, heating, and resting were planned together to avoid wasting fuel. Nothing was random, everything had a purpose. This careful use of time and energy helped them stretch limited resources. So how did they use 90% less wood? They changed how they thought about heat. They used small spaces, trapped warmth, burned slowly, blocked wind, layered clothing, stored heat, and worked together. It was not about having more, it was about using less in a smarter way. These ideas are simple but powerful, and even today, they can make a big difference. If you found this story interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to True Historia. Tell us what you think in the comments and let us know what you want to see next. Because sometimes the best survival secrets are the ones history already solved.